And good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat. Today I'm joined by the wonderful Gill Hicks, who is considered to be one of the most thought-provoking, powerful and life-affirming speakers in Australia and the UK. She is globally known as an advocate for sustainable peace and valuable resource in countering violent extremism. Her devotion to making a personal, greater contribution and positive difference to the urgency of building peace was realised when she was permanently injured in the London terrorist bombings on July the 7th, 2005. But Gill is much more than a survivor. Her focus is on building confidence and trust within ourselves, how having both allows us to make transformative choices. Gill advocates for the growth of a more confident collective society. Her life is built on what she describes as a series of conscious choices. Her mindfulness and being aware of the importance of the moment, sharing what she has learnt about herself, about humanity and the extraordinary, and what she believes is an inherent ability to not only face, but to rise in the wake of adversity. It's not only inspiring, but it's a valuable insight into what is possible in life. Gill Hicks, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. It's beautiful to be here.
Yeah, it's fabulous to have you.
I wish we were together. But,
I know.
Yeah, but it's lovely to be able to.
Yeah, at least we have an outing.
We do. I don't have my tracksuit on.
Nor do I.
I should say my housewear. Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Let's maybe go back to sort of when you were a little girl and, you know, what did you want to do and what did you want to be when you grew up and why?
So I was always the entertainer. I loved dancing, I loved singing, but for me, what really sort of touched my whole soul and brought me to life was painting and drawing and being an artist. And there's a very funny story. My mother was brought to my primary school to have a meeting with the principal, who wanted to tell her, look, your daughter has this extraordinary gift. All the other kids are doing stick figures and your daughter's doing these incredible pieces of art. What would you like us to do? And perhaps we should do something. And it goes to show the difference in era and generation, because there's my beautiful mum who just sat there and said, oh, isn't that lovely, Gilly? Oh, isn't that lovely? And I just thought, God, here we are with my daughter. If that was my daughter and I was in that situation, we'd be right, let's get her to the best art school. I don't care if she's 7. We're going to, fast track this. And I just, so it was, I guess, who I'd always wanted to be. And my father said to me that absolutely not am I allowed to follow a path in arts or be an artist. And he was very clear. He just said, you will never make any money unless you're dead and you're good. And if you're good, then your paintings will be worth something after you're dead. That was it. So.
Then what did you end up doing? So if you're sort of, father is telling you.
So then I went on the periphery. So I then went into design and the outskirts of architecture. So I was always on this sort of more professional periphery of who I really was in the middle, which was the artist. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's interesting because they both died when I was still quite young, so they didn't ever see that progression for me. But I would remember sort of rebelling against my father, and just all he wanted me to do was law or medicine, and I was sort of threatening to say no, I'm going to drop out and be a beautician or a do something that will really shake you up or your colleagues. Yeah.
Spoken like a true daughter.
That I went on to be an artist. Yeah.
And then at the age of 19, you arrived in London. Many Aussies do, go across to London to sort of, have that sort of travel experience and life experience. And, you actually became an incredibly well-recognised figure in the creative and cultural landscape in the United Kingdom. Maybe just talk us through, 19, packing up and heading to the UK. Yeah. My
Do you know, Anne,
my daughter's done the same thing. I'm living in fear that she won't come home, but we'll see what happens.
well, I have this sort of theory that if you go for longer than 5 years, that's kind of it, and you won't come back, because 5 years is enough time to create a new life with new friends, and suddenly your pull back to where you've come from becomes less and less and less. And I mean, I lived there for coming up to 25 years, so it was a long time. But for me, yes, both my folks died, and I had this sort of reaction. And it's been really interesting for me to think deeper about my actions at the time, because I was still quite young mentally as well, so quite a naive person. I'd never left Adelaide. I've never ventured at that time to even Melbourne or Sydney. Right. So my first, plane trip was this plane ride on Qantas to London. And I didn't even have a bearing that it would be a 24-hour journey. So I remember being immaculately dressed, thinking, well, I'm going to London. So my expectation, of course, is that I'm going to get off at the other side and run into someone that's just going to say, oh, you're exactly what we're looking for, come with us. And so there I was. I remember I had my hair beautifully straightened and sunglasses on my head and this little travel suit with blue suede high heel boots. And I looked at people getting on with tracksuits and pillows, and I thought, oh dear, that's not very good for going to London in. And boy, was I just... I look back at it, I don't even know how I survived. It's just that incredible, what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And isn't that a blessing? Isn't that sort of this great shield of armor that you just go into something and without thinking it through, because you don't know that you have to think anything through. Yeah. And I remember this sense of all I wanted was I was with Mum when she died, and the impact of this beautiful woman who was just in her early 50s, her hand sort of slipping out. And I just thought, is that it? I know that if I stay in Adelaide, I'll probably go on to have a Labrador and get married and have,
the white
kids.
Picket fence.
I need to shake it up. I need to really find out what I can do. So that was the only thought. And so it was meeting this unwanted, horrific change with, let's just shake my whole life up. And I thought, okay, I've got a visa for 2 years. Let's, what's the worst that can happen? And I had, traveller's checks. So that's how long ago it was. And I remember even the beautiful bank manager, I won't name the bank, but I was in Adelaide, and he said to me, now, Gill, you do understand, don't you, that £20 is different than $20. And I said, no, it's 20. And by 20, it's
like for like.
This is how much. And he said, no, that's not how much money you really have. You'll have this much money once you get to the UK. And he said, here's my home phone number. Please call me when you realise what's the reality of your life. And so I did call him and say, I've only got £10. So I was living in this shared accommodation across the road from Holloway Women's Prison. And I think there was sort of 25 people in this house, and it had no electricity, no hot running water. And I remember writing letters home to friends and my brother, and just going, London is exactly what I need right now. It's going to be the making of me. And, all by a little torchlight writing these things. And I realised, I need to go out and let London know I'm here. And it was that awakening also of here in Adelaide, we would talk to everyone. So you'd be at a bus stop or anything. You'd just go, morning, how are you? And of course, coming from a smaller city, everyone kind of knows everyone, or there's 6 degrees of separation. Yeah. So there I was in that sort of mindset in London, sitting next to someone saying, oh, morning, how are you? I'm from Adelaide. And you'd see these people get their books and just go,
please don't talk to me.
And I thought, of all the of things to learn, that there's this etiquette of the tube, that you're not allowed to talk to anyone, you're not allowed to look at anyone, and that life was actually pretty tough, you know. That was just navigating that alone was a challenge in itself of how do I do this?
Yeah.
And then I was standing on a I think it was a Westminster Bridge, and I just thought, okay, London, you're either going to make me or break me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you look at me like an adopted daughter. Please guide me. And with that, I looked up and I saw this huge tower, and it was the largest publishing company in Europe at the time. And I walked in there and I just said, I'm here, I can do anything, here I am. And I remember being again greeted with this sort of, no, I don't think so, really. Leave your CV at the desk, thank you. And I didn't have a CV, I didn't have anything. And I ended up just saying, look, I'm great. I will prove it to you. Give me a chance. If I come in every day for 3 months for free, I guarantee you'll give me a job at the end of it. And so I just turned up every day, and I ended up working at Marie Claire magazine, starting off in editorial, writing about, red lipstick. And again, just having that world uncovered of like, I thought this was, amazing and mysterious, but it was actually people sitting around in a meeting saying, when was the last time we covered red lipstick? Okay, get it back in. We need to bring that back on trend. And I thought, wow, the mystery's being unlifted. Yeah. And then I went into advertising and, just absolutely started a career there within publishing to start with that was extraordinary and had me go into the arts and into the place where my heart just came alive.
Yeah, fantastic. Because you ended up being the curator at the UK Design Council, right?
Yeah, amazing. So, and the last project I worked on, so the Design Council was a government-funded body, and so the government would come to each of their funded bodies, so the science body, the design body, to basically ask us each to explore solutions for various problems. And the last project that I worked on was looking at the extreme costs of amputees to the National Health Service.
Oh, wow.
And how can design put forward a case to lessen the amount of amputees. And we did this whole body of research around, two main areas, smoking-related illness and diabetes. Yeah. And I remember looking at these numbers of amputees thinking, I've never seen an amputee. Like, aren't they just war veterans? Extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And the irony has not been lost at all that would be my final piece of work before life changed.
Yeah, right. And so then, if we sort of talk about the day that your life actually changed, Gill, there was a series of events. So for you, it wasn't a normal day. There were a series of events that happened that actually changed your whole timing and everything on that day, which actually led to you being, the last living victim pulled out of the London bombing. So maybe just talk to our community a little bit about that day.
So I was absolutely a person that you could rely on as a workaholic that would always be at my desk at 7:30 every morning without fail, and I'd leave by about 10 at night to be able to get the decent sort of tube home. And that was my life. That was my pattern of my life. And I even developed, so I was trying to give up smoking cigarettes. So I was smoking sort of 40 cigarettes a day. And I thought, okay, it's excessive. So I started smoking a pipe. And I thought, okay, that looks a bit ridiculous. So then I started smoking cigars and then created a cigar club in Covent Garden. So we would meet at about 7 in the morning, have our coffee and chat, and if we dare, have our first cigar. And so this was hardcore lifestyle, and this was the one day. So the July the 6th, we were celebrating the win of London getting the 2012 Olympic bid.
Yep.
So it was a slightly different evening, and I slept in, which I never do. I was running late for work, which I never was. I got to my tube station, all of these little increments of time, and just things like my travel card. It's like, oh, I don't have my travel card. I've got to buy a ticket. Every little tiny increment of time. And then my usual train wasn't there, so I changed trains. And it still gets to me that there I was at King's Cross Station, and I was quite a short, little, wiry person, and I just thought, I'm going to get on this next train. And I sort of barged my way in, and there I was boarding, unbeknown to me, at exactly the same time as a suicide bomber. And it beggars belief because of the timing of tube trains in London.
Yep.
That it's every 2 minutes, it's every 3 minutes. It's these tiny bits of time that were literally the window between, life as we know it and life as we don't. Yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah. And one of the extraordinary things that came out of it was actually you wrote a book, and your book was actually called One Unknown. Where did the name of the book come from?
Oh, again, I think that this is probably the one area that's shaped everything I've become since the bombing.
Yeah.
Because that morning I was without an identity. And when I was rescued, when I was taken to the hospital, I was given an armband that literally said, one unknown, estimated female. So I remember still to this day, and it's coming up to 15 years next month, the impact that had on me when I read that label, because immediately it said just the state that my body must have been in for it to not even be certain that I was female.
Yeah.
And then after that sort of, wafted over me and the realisation of just how bad I was, it was then the secondary impact of, my God, people put their own selves at considerable risk to come and save my life, completely disregarding the fact of me being Gill Hicks, me being anyone. I was an unknown human being, and that was all that mattered. And those actions have completely changed the course of my life going forward, because I felt compelled that actually that is who we are. And I need to tell and remind us that those actions in those moments is who I believe we truly are as human beings.
Right.
And it's how do we get back to that without having the tragedy to remind us.
Yeah. And, you talk about how out of adversity comes creativity. You're an incredibly creative person, and we were talking beforehand just about the work that you're currently doing now. And you've sort of transitioned, you've got MAD, and you've sort of transitioned, Mad, from, right. So maybe just talk about all of that. And I don't want to use the word pivot because it's being overused at the moment, but, just talk to us about MAD and how you've sort of transitioned that.
So I created MAD to start off with because I was, really interested in the acronym of what is MAD, and I love the idea of being mad for peace, because then that has a sense of actually, yes, being angry about something is absolutely, I think, really healthy, because being angry gives you the fire in your belly to say, I'm going to make a difference about this. I'm going to do something. I'm going to keep getting up and showing up and making a difference. And so having that anger edge, I thought, really was quite a constructive thing, as long as it's not sort of underseated by bitterness or hatred, but it's just, I want to make a difference. So that's where MAD came from, of making a difference. And then MAD for peace sort of migrated into mad minds. So as the years have sort of evolved, so has the thinking. And I thought, actually, I've now progressed to really be looking at counterterrorism and deterring anyone from going down the path of destructive extremism. And that's taken a whole group of minds coming together. So then I thought, well, we're making a difference through our thoughts and thinking and doing something that's not been done before. And then now that's progressed to welcome back the position of expression of art in my life, and also music, because we released a song a few years ago as well. And I thought, mad, what else could mad be with music and art? And I thought, music, art, discussion. And so it's still mad, but it's taking on these different forms as life evolves. And I kind of like that there's always this madness of, there underpinning everything. But being mad can have lots of iterations to it. And that's what keeps me, I guess, excited about, each bit of life unfolding.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about yesterday, we were talking about what does an average day look like, and we were talking about COVID-19 and the chaos within the COVID-19. And you reflected on how you like to create chaos in your own life.
I think we should say to anyone watching, look away now.
Yeah. That's right. Walk away. Walk away.
Yeah, look away. Yeah. A little health warning. Yeah. Do not try this at home. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just sort of talk us through, how you're coping with COVID-19, because you also have a family as well. You have a beautiful daughter. And then just sort of touch a little bit on how you create the chaos just to keep things interesting.
So I think for all of us in the arts and entertainment and events industries, it was that's the whole body of my paid work.
Yep.
Everything else I do. So my paid work helps fund my unpaid work, which is also then had to stop because we can't keep everything. It's this
moving.
Beautiful ecosystem. And so one thing that we just don't think of is this fantastic ecosystem being halted within the space of 48 hours. And I think it's that suddenness that, sort of creates the panic. And then the panic sort of moves through a different sort of form of going into uncertainty, and uncertainty then has fear attached to it, and all of these sorts of things. I think if I can use the word greatest experience of this pandemic is this absolute camaraderie that we can reach out and find that actually there are so many that are in exactly the same situation. There are others that are flourishing and doing brilliantly, but there's a lot of us that we can reach out. So I've never been more connected through, virtual gatherings and people just saying, hey, could you do this? Yep, because I'm home, we're here. So there's no excuse. So I've found that absolutely, if you can be calm enough, that there is creativity to be born because you have to.
Yep.
And when you're pushed in a corner, you haven't got many choices other than to say, how do I design myself out of this?
Yep.
And then I think if there's enough people, you have a collective that are all designing something extraordinary, which will be revealed one day. But for me, again, I put into the practice of how do I throw this, absolute intentional change at my unwanted change. So just like I went to London to deal with what was happening with parents dying, when I was first fitted with prosthetic legs, I remember the consultant coming in and he was asking me to put my arms out to measure me, and I was very, very short. And so I said to him, why are you measuring my arms? And he said, well, that gives me an idea of how tall you were. And I said, oh, and it's because we're going to make you quite a lot shorter to get your sense of gravity. And I said, oh, no, we're going to go a lot taller than that. And so again, I was trying to explain to him, this is all new. This is completely an unwanted situation. So I might as well intention something that I want from it. So I walked out, a lot taller than when I began in my natural life. And even now with COVID-19, I up until pre-pandemic, I had this gorgeous long hair that I, loved. And without even having any gin and tonics, so there was no alcohol responsible, just one Friday night, just thought, you know what, I'm going to shave all my hair off because I'm going to bring in some really uncomfortable changes because I want to intention them in and have things that I can say, I did that, rather than things coming at me that I didn't want. And how am I going to navigate and think about, shift my thinking to watching my hair grow rather than worrying about what I'm going to do to sustain my life. And then I thought, well, this isn't enough yet, Anne. I'm going to really push it a bit further. And I happened to see an email from the lovely dog rescue places, and they said, we need to move the animals as quickly as possible because of the pandemic. And I just thought, the one thing we can offer a dog right now is lots and lots and lots of love and a home. And so we've got this hilarious anxiety-ridden 1-year-old Doberman Kelpie. And I remember saying to the people as we took her, I just said, I'm a double amputee. Is this going to be like...
Is this going to be a problem?
Come back with my leg, And they were so desperate. They were just like, no, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Bye. Right. So it's been interesting because there are so many other layers to focus energy on other than sitting there in a panic or fear. And it's actually helped me be incredibly focused and creative because I'm not able to have a moment of feeling, worried or distressed about a situation. It's any downtime, I've got this little darling sort of pulling at my top or jumper because she wants to play, or she wants a cuddle.
Great distraction. Dogs are a great distraction. Absolutely. A few weeks ago, we had Curtis McGrath on Fireside Chat, who's also a double amputee. And he talked about a little bit about accessibility and, I think you phrased it around exploring ability with disability. And he reflected that we're not doing enough to support people with disabilities. What's your insights into that, Gill?
Look, I think it's so hard to imagine a world when you're able. So I can only think of myself as when I lived in life one, when I was completely able and so arrogant about my ability that I even chose to smoke and abuse this fantastic body, and then a life two which is compromised and the world has a different lens. So everything that, an able-bodied person would look at and think, oh, that's fine. I don't need a ramp or I don't need a rail. Suddenly, in my lens, it becomes the Mount Everest, and I think it's almost impossible to ever imagine. So therefore, I'm a great advocate of ensuring that we always have the people at the table when we're making the decisions about anything. So have the people at the table. Universal design for me is the absolute, I guess, template that we should ever be adhering to, because universal design is just seamless and it works for everyone, because it's not just someone with a disability, it's someone who's elderly or someone that's got a pram or someone that's got a shopping trolley or, someone that's just broken their leg, and they'll get better. So I think just a seamless ease of how we move around a city and how we move around buildings is absolutely how I would approach a design to our urban life. And I think then layered upon that is our attitude. And it's to see the person. Again, it comes back to me of one unknown estimated female. I'm the person who happens to be a double amputee, but I'm Gill first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you were to have sort of, as some takeaways for our community today, what would they be?
Look, it's hard. I think a lot of people have probably been motivated to death during this time because we're
Zoomed to
all
death.
and all grappling for something. So, what podcast? What do I do? What do I listen to? I think for me, it would be something that I've come back to time and time again. Through the good times, to remember to be in the moment, but also through very difficult times, and that is to say that this too shall pass.
Yep.
Everything has its time, and it will pass. We've just got to get through, and it's the making of really who we are. So to me, it's this little thing I like to say of how do I evolve to be an even better version of Gill.
Yep.
Through going through this experience.
Yep.
And to know that it will end, it will change. We will have a day where we're hugging each other again, and we'll look back at this and say, gosh, do you remember COVID-19? That was extraordinary, wasn't it? And we'll have faint memories of various moments, and that will happen. That is life.
Yeah. And if you could name one thing that you would never take for granted again, post-COVID-19, what would that be?
Can I have two things?
You can have two things.
So for me, look, I'm a hugger,
Yeah.
so I've found it really hard because that's how I communicate with people. I just put my arms out and bring people very close, and I'm notorious. Everyone knows me for my, I almost hold on a bit too long type hugs, so I'm
Make it a little bit awkward.
awkward, especially people I've just met. But I love, I'm come from a position of just love, and so I found that really hard. But also travel. So now I was due to be in London exhibiting a rather big piece of work there called Stalemate, and of course being there for the 15th anniversary, being with the people that rescued me, holding them, being with them. They're like family. So it's hard because we don't know when we'll ever be able to get back.
Yep.
And that's got lots of layers to it of when we're going to be able to get back, because we've got to get life back, to some sort of sustainability here first before we can even look at what's going on the wider spectrum. So for me, it's travel.
Yeah.
And being close to people.
Yeah, awesome. Gill Hicks, it's been an absolute delight to have you on our Fireside Chat today. Just, right back at you. And make sure
Good thing my legs didn't melt.
Make sure you stay fine. And and I look forward to seeing you and hugging you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, and love to everyone, and this too shall pass.
Thanks, Gill.
Yeah. Mwah. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Can you hear me, Gill?
Yep, there you go.
Ah, awesome. Yeah. I can't hear Gill.
Oh.
Oh, now I can. Okay. There weren't so much questions.